Hello everybody, this is Manda of the Six, and welcome to another Base Game Plus build. These are builds in which I limit what I can use to base game content and the content of only one other pack. This can be one expansion pack, one game pack, or one stuff pack. These builds do not include the use of any custom content. This creates an interesting challenge as a builder as well as makes these builds more accessible to others on the Sims gallery, be it for simmers who have a limited number of packs installed in their game, or by simmers who are on console and do not have access to downloadable content, such as mods or custom content. Today's build uses content from base game and the Tiny Living Stuff pack. The broad concept that I had was to make a treehouse that I could house up to 2 Sims comfortably. In the end, it fits into the Tier 2 level for the tiny home residential lot, which is the tiny home 33 to 64 tile range, which means that your Sims will still get some but not all of the benefits off of the lot perks. These are boost to skill building. Any items that have comfortability are twice as effective, so your couches, your your beds, your chairs. You have less energy bills, and there is an extended buff for positive mood, so happy, inspired, and focused will last longer on this lot. So even though I had it able to house 2 Sims comfortably, I went in with only a starter home budget. So this is under 20,000 simoleons and stuck to it as closely as I could. There's a lot of me in this build, uh, reconfiguring things, reworking the layout to make things less expensive. So replacing, an expensive couch with a cheaper couch that still fits into the fun aesthetic. So getting to the build proper, went through, found a tree that looks sturdy enough because a lot of the trees that are narrow enough don't look particularly sturdy to support a house. Have the house wrapping around this tree. There's were a couple of things that I was doing to play around with the roof. What I end up doing is just a hipped roof around the whole area. I think what I will do that is not part of the speed build, I think there's 2 things that I'm going to do. One is remember an outdoor bin because I realized after recording I hadn't put that on. And the second thing is probably putting some more windows facing inwards so that the Sims would be able to look at the tree because it's kind of the whole point of a tree house is to be in touch with nature. Playing around with how it wraps around the tree itself and just getting some cycling through some trim options, shoving the tree outside because the camera was a bit of a pain in the butt, jumping up and down, or the tree was blocking it. There's still a lot of the camera dipping because there's a hole in the middle of the house. I tried to cut out as much of that dipping as I could. That way it would have made for a smoother speed build. And then just cycling through some wood options. One of the things I don't like in The Sims is you can't use the style tool on the ladders. I noticed that on a couple of builds. The apartment build that I have to record next is you can't just switch the color swatch. You have to like replace the ladder or cycle through using the plus or minus keys. So that's a little annoying because the fact that you can I believe you can swap around color palettes on stairs with the tool, but I might be wrong on that one as well. So initially, I start with this very retro, very like mid-century modern concrete look, bright colors. The bright colors do stay, but I do go for more of a traditional like uh, timber cabin look for the treehouse exterior, and then pop the color on the interior where I can. So, be it having a feature wall that's a bit of a brighter color, or bringing those colors into the furniture pieces and what have you. and then went through a whole bunch of different iterations, cut a lot of them out for windows. I like these little ones, but they didn't end up fitting well with the dimensions that I had, so uh, placed them around, looked at it, didn't really like it, went for the more retro squared off windows that have that little pop of color inside them, and that was another way of introducing a little bit of extra color into the build without it being quite as gaudy. Um, so swapped it to back to traditional um, timber wood and just kind of adding modern elements without them being too intrusive to the build. And then playing around quite a bit with the layout of the house. Think the placement of the bathroom where it does end up being off of the skill building and office room. Was playing around with it being off of the bedroom slash living room for a while, playing around with where I wanted the bedroom to be in this house. I do end up using the Murphy bed, but because it's such a costly piece, that did limit the budget elsewhere. But it allows for a multi-purpose piece, so that at least makes good use of the space. So initially, I shy away from it, saying, I can make my own living room, which I might do another tiny build later and see what other options, because this has such a weird layout to it with, there being a hole in the middle for the tree. It also limits and makes the room sizes these very odd proportions to work with for rooms. So it's not the same sort of build that you could get out of a even a micro home if you had, those the 32 tiles all being squared off with each other. You would be able to um, have an easier layout with going around fitting a lot of the larger furniture items in with each other. So it'll definitely give uh, the micro home challenge a go at it. So finally getting into the kitchen, I end up sort of making a U-shaped kitchen. Uh, it has, all the appliances. They do end up being the cheaper end appliances when I, go through and make sure that this is within the starter home budget. But initially, just kind of figuring out what aesthetic I want for this area, kind of a little bit industrial, but also bringing those wood tones into the kitchen itself. And just, having a nice little sink with bringing the warmer and darker wood tones in, bringing a little pop of color where I can, using the appliances as sort of like a means of bringing that color in. And think, play around a little bit with where I want all of the appliances. I do remember a small bin inside the house. I just need to remember to put an exterior bin before I put this on the gallery. So by the time you see this, it will be have the necessary modifications, be it having some interior windows looking at the tree itself, and also having that exterior bin, so your Sims aren't stuck with all of their trash being in that little like office shaped bin in the kitchen. Um, and just a lot of playing around with clutter, with cabinetry, figuring out what to do for uh, making this area seem both like something that you'd be able to have enough storage for, um, all of your, not only your plateware, but also just having additional storage space for other areas of the household that you don't have as much storage because it is that much smaller. Um, I remember looking and watching a couple building shows where the stairs were a method of storage in tiny homes, and that was a really cool concept. Um, so it took much later than intended before I put in the lights. So apologies again for a darker build. I almost always tend to build in like the golden hour in The Sims. So it helps me visualize how much natural lighting is coming into the house, but again, it also doesn't make for as clear of a speed build when like played back. So I would definitely the two the main to do is to make sure I throw the lights in earlier. However, it does make for an easier way of visualizing how much light is coming in on the Sims, be it from interior lights, bedside lights, that what have you, or just how much natural light's coming in. So it works out in it. So this little area I end up reconfiguring a little bit. Initially, I um, have the office kind of closer to where the living room is. Reconfigure the entranceway area. I'm gonna end up opening this up quite a bit, with kind of extending the porch around. Um, but what I end up doing for the the office space is having the bathroom um, against the wall to the bedroom. So unfortunately for the Sims, it does mean in the middle of the night they would have to go outside to access the bedroom. Um, I would imagine in cooler environments, that would you wouldn't have an open deck. You would have a deck that could be like either a screened-in porch or a insulated patio area that could be closed off during winter and colder fall months, just to also keep your house warmer when needed. So initially, I plan for having this being just an office and potentially an additional bedroom, like a single bedroom. Um, Reconfigure this area a little bit to allow for fitting a bathroom a little easier. That way, I didn't have to have the bathroom, kitchen, living room, like didn't have your main entrance being through the bathroom. Um, and to add a little pop of color, and also to make this office area work a little bit better, I just use a table against that wall there. That way I can push the computer and chair onto the left, and there's still easy path for a sim to come through um, and get to the bathroom or get to other skill building items that are in this room, and also just for ease of navigation. And then I believe this is around the time where I kind of glanced over and saw that I was over budget, and start scaling back the electronics, start uh, seeing where I don't need to double up. The fact that I was like, oh, I'm really, oh, I'm already over budget, but I still needed to get a bathroom in. So went for not, the cheapest bathroom items, but not the most expensive, just the ones that kind of have that like nice industrial look, really like the shower that has the um, more industrial frame and the larger tiles kind of built into it. It's got some nice warm tones in it. And then just going around, adding some rugs, adding some clutter. Um, gotta make sure, remember a toilet paper roll, gotta remember hand towel, those kind of things, and using the clutter as a means of bringing some color in, because when I do end up wallpapering it, I go for just sort of warm pastels to bring in a little bit of color to lighten up the walls to make the area feel a little bit bigger, but not overpowering. So just add a little bit of clutter, a little bit of plant life to lifen up that area, um, and just to make it feel a little bit more homey, and also to prevent Sims from just like piling plates onto it, because that's they do like doing that. So this is where I open it up a little bit. Play around cut out playing around a little bit where the ladder was gonna go. Still keep it in that area, and just add a little sitting area. So it's another place for Sims to go if they're like eating or socializing. Um, and it's just out in the open. That would be a nice way of like spending the evening with a coffee or something. And then for art, I kept it minimal but still like cozy. A lot of there's a couple of scaled up art pieces just to fill some of the larger walls, but for the most part, because these are smaller rooms, smaller places to work with, it's much easier to furnish and to make spaces feel like well decorated just because there's so little wall space to need to decorate. So that's one of the plus sides, and I believe I do swap over to a cheaper uh, wood hardwood option just to save a little bit of money. Um, and this is where I'm just like going through different color options to go for the textured one initially. That's a little still expensive, so I do end up adding some fun elements where I can, but going for the cheaper but still nice option for adding color to the walls. This yeah, swap out the appliances, have them nice and bright to make the kitchen not seem too dark. Didn't do very much in the way of landscaping because the tree is gonna be kind of like a set piece, and I didn't want to add too much in the way of debug clutter, anything that the Sims would walk through. But just added a little bit of terrain paint to really ground the tree. And then for outdoor lighting, not much in the way of lighting. I think it's just that porch one really. I think I might add a small, I guess, pedestal light or one of the outdoor, like the smaller street lights just outside to give a little bit of lighting for as Sims are coming up to the treehouse. So this is where I swap over. Initially do the crown molding, but it's a little bit too much, so just go with the plain paint. And then I believe this is around the time where I figured the all-in-one console that comes with Tiny Living is very expensive. Like it's very space efficient, which is kind of the whole point of it, but it is uh, very expensive when you're using a starter home budget, even when you're limiting how much space you're working with. So what I do end up doing is still taking up a 1x2 area. Um, all I needed to do was put the I think I just put the TV and a stereo onto a 2x1 dresser, so that still covers uh, the utility of that area, and then just adding a bookcase, either a stack of books or the wall mounted bookcase, just adding that onto the kitchen wall, and that ended up saving quite a substantial amount of money. And I could still add um, the fun details of, the fun pop of color, you know, the nicer elements to this room without it feeling, like it was just going for the cheapest item available. And then this is where initially I had the under counter lighting, and then just kind of saving simoleons where I could. Another way of saving simoleons, because it's purely for aesthetics, would be removing some of the fence pieces that are kind of visually representing bracing up the house on the tree. That would be another area that people playing with this could save on simoleons where they could. And then just playing around, moving the lot to kind of fit it a little bit better on the corner lot, and then repainting the terrain paint just because it was a little bit too intense. So yeah, I will remember to add a outdoor bin. I might add a little bit of debug plants. We'll see how it looks. It's a very open lot and a lot of potential for growth, which is kind of what you want out of your tiny home. And you know what? Like, what kid doesn't want to live in a tree house? I'd say that would be kind of a dream come true for a lot of people. So thank you very much for watching this build. The gallery link will be down below, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Have a great day.